From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Good morning. I think we have a lot to cover, so I think we want to convene fairly close to being on time. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Law Library of Congress. My name is Roberta Schaefer, and I have the absolute pleasure every day, almost every day of the week, actually, of serving as the 22nd Law Librarian of Congress. So welcome on behalf of the Law Library, the Library of Congress, and the ABA. I wanted to alert you to the fact that our meeting this morning, our proceedings this morning, will be videotaped. And just so that you will be aware of that, if there are any concerns about that, you can make the accommodation you need to make. This is important because we would like to be able to use this morning's meeting for future use in training and orienting people about this fabulous project that we're here to learn about. So please be aware of that. It's happening in the back of the room. In 1980, 66 countries signed the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which has been ratified by 185 countries. To support the principles underlying this convention, in 2008, the American Bar Association launched the International Models Project on Women's Rights, going by the acronym of IMPOWR. The goal of the initiative was to establish an online collaborative database on women's rights under law. The IMPOWR database provides a comparison of gender equality law reform and enforcement efforts on a country-by-country basis. The database covers 40 specific topics of relevance to women: crime and violence, marriage and familial relations, for more than 185 countries. Taken as a whole, the site represents a global, searchable repository of information on gender reform. And it also presents for us an exemplar that we may model for any other efforts where we might wish to target, as a community of nations, as an individual activist, issues of inequality and discrimination around the world for other groups. So it is not just useful for women, although that alone, I am sure, would be a most worthy reason for its existence, but it has the potential to be an exemplar down the road. This morning, we are absolutely honored to have a number of people with us who will do the formal presentation. I will give you a little brief introduction to each of them, and then they'll just take the podium. I regret that due to some things that are happening on Capitol Hill today, I'm sure you're all aware of them actually, I will not be able to remain for the whole program, but I'm hoping, because we are being videotaped, that when things are a little less stressful, I'll be able to view the tape. So please forgive me for exiting early. It is not because of lack of interest. Jason Matejacek is with the International Relief and Development entity, or agency, I guess. He's the general counsel there, but he also serves as in the law office of the ABA section of International Law, Rule of Law. And I hope I've gotten that correctly. I'm going to ask you to just hold your horse for just 1 second while I introduce Aileen Pisciotta, who is the chair of the IMPOWR Task Force, but also a practicing lawyer for over 25 years in private practice, government service, and as in-house counsel. She received an AB in literature and an MA in communications from the University of Pennsylvania, and a JD cum laude from Georgetown University Law Center. So I guess she's kind of back in her neighborhood now. We will next hear from Amy Granger. Amy has been one of the co-chairs of the IMPOWR Research Committee, and she's been doing that since January of 2010. Amy's next in the queue here. And Amy is a lawyer. She lives and works in Washington, D.C. She's with the law firm of McDermott, Will & Emery, well-known and very prestigious firm, as all of you know. And she is also an adjunct professor at the George Washington University Law School. And then last but not least, you will hear from the Law Library's own Janice Hyde, who is the director of GLIN Central, GLIN standing for the Global Legal Information Network, which has been based here at the Law Library of Congress since 1994 in its more or less database form, although its predecessor was started by Mrs. Claggett in, I think, 1948. So it has long roots in trying to aggregate law for the benefit of society, the flow of business, and all of those necessary parts of living in a global world. Janice has had a number of positions within the Library of Congress, including a stint with our Congressional Research Service. She's been with the Law Library for quite some time now and brings a very interesting perspective in that she has a PhD in anthropology from Syracuse University. So I think everyone today really has shown that they have reason to be on the podium, and I know that you will all enjoy hearing what they have to say and learning from them. So again, forgive me for not being able to be here. And Jason, the podium is yours. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Janice, and thank to everybody at the Law Library of Congress for hosting this, I guess it's our 7th in the series of rule of law issues we've been working on with the American Bar Association of Section International Law. Again, I'm Jason Matichak. I'm General Counsel of International Relief of Development, and I'm absolutely delighted to be the Rule of Law Officer for the Section of International Law for this year. As I mentioned, this is the 7th in a series of programs we've had on rule of law, and we hope we'll have some more. Basically, we've talked with USAID, the Millennium Challenge Corporation, the World Justice Program, the World Bank Sanctions Group, ABA Rowley, the State Department's International Narcotics and Legal Enforcement Section, and now we're going to be talking about IMPOWR. And I guess the series is designed to educate those who are in our section and in the community about the various rule of law efforts that are going on around the world, and try to find ways where we can plug into them, learn from them, and participate in those sections. We're taking a break for April because of the section's spring meeting, which will be here in Washington. And if you haven't signed up, there's still plenty of time to do that. It's going to be next week. And there'll be a special session, again, like this IMPOWR one, next Thursday as part of the program. I know we'll hear more about that as we go along, but it's focusing on the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So if you're going to attend that session, the spring meeting as a whole, that session is one that shouldn't be missed. We're going to have one more session in May. It's on May 4th. It'll be the World Bank's Justice Reform Program at the World Bank, so mark your calendars for that one. As Roberta mentioned, this is being recorded, so there will be a way to submit questions in. There's an email address you can use. It's called INTROL, introll, at americanbar.org. Again, INTROL at americanbar.org. And if you submit questions that way, they'll be repeated to the broader audience and so on. For those of you on the line, when the session is opened up at the end, there'll be an opportunity for questions, and all you have to do is hit *6 to have your questions. But again, during the course of the presentation, your lines will be muted. So again, let me just echo Roberta's thanks to our panel. It's going to be a fantastic session. I'll just turn things over to you. And again, thank you for participating, and thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Jason. And I wanted to say thank you again to the Library of Congress for hosting us. We're delighted to be in this wonderful venue and to be able to talk to you about our partnership with the Library of Congress in the IMPOWR project. I also wanted to welcome everyone who's here today. This is a great showing, and welcome everybody who's online as well. I wanted to start off by giving you a little bit of background about how IMPOWR got started. I have to admit, it's essentially a creature of my own little brain, so there are not very many people to blame for its failings than me. But it started about 3 or 4 years ago with the idea that there was just a lot of important information that needed to be shared about why the world suffers so greatly from inequality, particularly towards women, and trying to find a way to develop a platform so that people all around the world could share information about legal reform efforts on gender equality. So the ABA International Section did launch a task force on this issue in 2007, and we were invited a year later to submit a proposal for funding to the American Bar Association's Enterprise Grant Fund. And lo and behold, we got a nice grant to support the development of the database and the website. So we've been very fortunate to have the ABA's tremendous support in developing this utility. We also have co-sponsors in the American Bar Association. It's not just the International Law section, but also the Real Property Trust and Estate Law section, the Commission on Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, and the Commission on Women have all supported us. And we are very, very pleased and extremely proud to have the Library of Congress and Glenn as our first strategic partner in this project. We're just delighted to be working with them. Our second strategic partner, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, is Thomson Reuters and their foundation. And they are just in the process of launching a new website of their own called Trust Law Women, focusing on pro bono projects and bringing lawyers together, pro bono lawyers together with pro bono projects working on women's rights under law. And Thomson Reuters, the news organization, actually found us and asked us to be their law and legislative resource. And we will, in a few minutes, show you a little video that is on the Trust Law website that explains a little bit about IMPOWR. And eventually, people will be able to go from Trust Law directly into our website to do the research that they need to do on the existing laws. We are now in our beta stage, which means that we're still working out a few kinks and putting the final information on the database. It also means that the database is by no means complete, and Amy will talk to you about that a little bit. We are at the very beginning of getting the data onto the database. We're planning on our formal launch later on this spring, so it's great to have you all here to hear about it in advance and to be able to have this webinar available to get the word out. And we would appreciate your talking to people that you know who might be interested in this. We're definitely looking for more volunteers and more help. The goal of IMPOWR, it's a little complicated, but it all makes sense at the end. It's really to leverage the international resources of the ABA, which is both in terms of people and knowledge. And the American Bar Association has members all over the world and connections with bar associations all over the world. And the idea is to provide a platform to make collective use of all that knowledge and resource around the world over a collaborative internet platform, taking full advantage of everything that the internet and the web has to offer, which is not just a website and a database, but a lot of interactivity, as I'll talk about later. And a global community of experts, which will include ABA members, non-ABA lawyers, and non-lawyers who are experts in gender equality issues, that empower advocates of gender equality under the law around the world. So we're looking to be literally an empowering resource to help those who are on the front lines have access to the primary source materials and the learning from other people's projects to help them in their efforts around the world. As Roberta mentioned to you, this project is related directly to CEDAW. And I have 1979 up here. It was actually, came into force in 79, and the signatures didn't happen until 1980. One point of information, the United States was an original signatory. It is the only signatory that has not yet ratified the convention. And our program at the spring meeting, which Amy will talk to you about, is all about this issue of ratification and how difficult that is. But we took the framework of CEDAW, and the issues that are addressed in CEDAW. CEDAW is a convention which participating countries are obliged to implement in their domestic laws. So it sets out a set of issues that countries are undertaking to implement in their legal framework. So we took those issues and organized them as the foundation of our project. The concept of the database and the website is multifold. We wanted to provide original content. So you'll hear how we're going to be supplying this original content. This is information you will not find anywhere else. It is both descriptive and analytical, and it provides a lot of links and connections to other resources. It's wiki-like in the sense that we've built a platform that allows people to both contribute and edit prior contributions. So it will be something that can continuously be updated and can continuously grow and evolve as circumstances change. We want it to be completely up to date. It provides not only our own original content, but access to other articles and other reports. We actually are going to have other original articles of original authorship on our website, but also links to other documents. It's in a highly structured format. This is what distinguishes it from a true wiki. Wikis generally are organized so that people can create new pages that address information that's on an existing page. We're not allowing that. We are actually, we've created all the buckets for the information, and all the information will go into those buckets. We do have the ability to take recommendations from contributors if we need to create a new bucket, but nobody can create a new bucket but us. The reason for that is that we want to be able to compare all 185 countries across these very defined subject matter topics, and also across all the different ways that we're slicing the information. And we do have a robust searching capability, so you'll be able to contrast and compare either on countries in a region or countries around the world or a particular topic area or any kind of an issue that comes up. We wanted, in addition to having our own content, to be a hub for information that's already out there. There are an enormous number, I've just been amazed, an enormous number of sites out there that slice this issue in different ways. There are law schools that have wonderful case law files, particularly on violence against women. Another school has a database that's kind of a geographic mapping of where women's rights issues occur. There are NGOs and public institutions that have wonderful databases. Glenn itself has a database of laws. So we're trying to be a hub, so we don't have to recreate everything. We'll just point you to whatever else is out there. We also wanted to highlight projects, law reform projects. And instead of providing complete descriptions of these law reform projects, we found that there was some other organization that has a complete database, actually more than one have complete databases on law reform projects. So we're going to provide a very brief and general profile of law reform projects so that people surfing our website are aware of them, but we'll send you to other databases so that you can get details. Projects supported by the World Bank or development banks or private foundations or schools or NGOs. And our information is intended primarily to be useful in those law reform projects. And those projects can be not just the creation of new legislation, but most importantly, figuring out how to enforce and implement that legislation. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. And other legal databases on women's rights, obviously. Our potential user community is very broad. We're not looking just for lawyers. We're looking to reach anybody and everybody who's in the chain of involvement in women's rights. And this is the legislators and the policymakers and the law enforcement people, but also social workers and academics and people who are dealing with the consequences and the externalities of issues concerning gender equality under the law, and most especially the development community, because what's really at issue here is changing the notion globally of the value of women in society. That's the bottom line, and that's really ultimately a development issue. So frankly, the way we see this is that the law reform efforts that we're focusing on and that we are empowering people to understand are the necessary but insufficient leading edge of global change in the whole notion of gender equality. And the bottom line here really is, how do we get to that attitude, the pervasive attitude throughout society that women are not deserving of equality? And I think the way we get to that is by empowering women legally, and then empowering them economically and financially, and demonstrating the contribution that women make to society through the focus on development, and then thereafter, the attitude follows. And this is actually beginning to be a theme that's being put out there in the literature that we're seeing. So we're feeling very validated about that. Okay, so in phase one, not only are we in beta, but we're just in phase one. We're a baby project at this point. There's two components to what we have. We have a website, which will have certain features on it, and then we have the database. And this slide explains what's on the website itself. We will have not only the links to the research database, but we have a virtual journal. And we have, with this virtual journal, an opportunity for lawyers and law students to write law review type articles on any topic of interest to them. And we're going to be posting them on our website. We will have a custom news feed from Thomson Reuters, which will bring us immediate news and newsworthy personal interest stories about what's happening around the world with women. We'll be able to poll people for opinions on different issues. And we're going to have a threaded discussion. So we will be able to hear from people in the community or people who are just visiting the website the issues of interest to them, so that we can begin to focus our efforts on those things that really concern people. Phase one will last for a year or two, no doubt, but we're already working on phase two. I said phase one. Phase one will last for a while, but phase two, we do hope to make better use of multimedia. The whole idea is to use technology to its fullest potential. So having webinars like this, we will eventually try to have teleconferences with international participants, so we can literally link up the world with various types of technologies so that people can get together without having to travel. And language translation. Currently, we're only in English. We realize that really is a barrier to success. So as soon as possible, we do want to begin to provide translated material. Okay, this is the fun part. This is where you really see what it is that we're trying to do in this database. As I mentioned, it's original content. This is very well-researched and footnoted material with very specific links to other sources of information. I mentioned it's editable through wiki-like tools, and we'll be able to see who the editors are and what the versions are. We will have a committee of reviewers who we're just now developing, who will be experts from around the world, who will review the contributions and make sure that they are consistent and of a consistent level of quality and accuracy. I mentioned that it's highly structured, and this is the structure that tells you, sort of reflects our thinking. It is organized by country, so when you go on the site, you'll be able to first pick the country that you're interested in. As I mentioned, now we're in beta and early phases, and there are only a few countries that actually have data in them, but eventually when the whole database is filled out, you'll just be able to pick from 185 countries who you want to look at. And the next thing that you'll do is pick among topic areas. And Roberta mentioned that we're reflecting the main topic areas in CEDAW. They are specifically the country's status with respect to CEDAW, and that means whether it was a signatory, whether it has ratified, and whether it has ratified with reservations, which is another whole issue about treaty implementation. But some countries take exception to some parts of CEDAW, and they ratify only with reservations. The next topic is civic life, and this covers the ability to vote as well as to participate in governance. Healthcare, obviously a big one. All the topics that that cover access to healthcare, right to healthcare. Marriage and family relations, custody, divorce, property ownership. Economic and social life, the ability to control your own money, to have a job, to control your own economic future. Crimes and violence, a big topic with women, and access to justice. Some of the biggest problems we see happening are not necessarily the lack of appropriate laws or even the lack of appropriate enforcement, but the lack of legal literacy. Big problem. These 7 topics are further divided into 40 subtopics. And there is a brochure that's available. I think all of you have here. Anybody online who would like a copy of the brochure, please send us an email. We'll be happy to send it to you. But this itemizes all of the subtopics that are covered in the database for each of the 185 countries. But that's not all. I didn't even do the math, so I don't know what 40 times 185 is. But
it's depressing.
Each of the 40 subtopics are discussed with respect to 4 different categories. Here's the subtopics. This is a slide that you won't be able to read, but just it's there in the material so that you can see it. And these are the 4 different ways in which we are developing content for each of the subtopics. First, the current legal framework, which is a summary of the current law, including constitutions, laws, and legislation, regulations, and links to original texts. So you can go on to this part of the website and be directed right to the original law, and currently they're all in their original language. Law reform efforts and projects. As I mentioned earlier, we're providing a small, not very detailed profile of law reform projects that we're aware of, links to more detail, but also some descriptive and analytical original content, talking about the projects and how they worked, whether they were successful, what the issues were that arise in those projects. And this is where the idea of models comes in, because eventually we'll see that these projects provide models for future projects. Enforcement and protection of equality. And this is where we really get the rubber meeting the road about, having a law in the books is one thing, but being able to enforce it is another. How do you get the witnesses into court if they live in the bush, if they don't understand that they have the legal right, if they have been injured and can't travel, or they have children that they can't leave? How do you actually get these laws enforced when they exist? And then, very importantly, and this is the biggest key, is the role of local traditions and cultural norms in the issue of law reform and gender equality. And what we've been finding is that one of the biggest stumbling blocks to this entire effort is the strength of local customs and traditions that are running counter to law reform efforts. There was just an article this morning that I pulled up from the New York Times about an 11-year-old girl who was lashed. I think this was in Bangladesh, and she was lashed to death under Sharia law for the crime of having been raped. And there is a law in Bangladesh that would have protected her. Sharia law, that aspect of Sharia law apparently has been banned under the laws of the country. But obviously, where this young girl lived and the tribal leadership where she lived had a different idea of appropriate justice. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with here in the role of traditions. This is the trust law connection. This is a little slide that shows you where we are on the trust law site. And I'm going to go ahead and play the video that appears on the trust law site so you can hear a little bit about what we're doing.
IMPOWR, the International Models Project on Women's Rights, is an exciting new resource on women's rights under law. IMPOWR is a database of laws, analysis, law reform projects, secondary resources, and links to other databases focused on the progress towards gender equality around the world. The database is organized around the issues addressed in the 1979 Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, also known as CEDAW. Within this well-structured and navigable framework, the database offers a wiki-like platform for global information sharing and continuous updating on each topic. Let's use the country of Bangladesh to illustrate the navigation of information in the database. The country page consists of a brief description of the legal system and CEDAW status. We select the subtopic Trafficking under the topic Crimes and Violence. Click on Go and we will be taken to the selected subtopic page. The first entry on the subtopic page is a summary of the subtopic in the selected country. The subject matter is further divided into 4 categories. The current legal framework provides a descriptive baseline of the relevant constitutional framework and any statutes and regulations that have been adopted to address gender equality issues in the pertinent topic. Law reform efforts summarizes law reform initiatives, including legislative initiatives by local authorities, interest groups, and NGOs, as well as law reform projects funded by international organizations. Enforcement and Protection of Equality in Civil Society describes challenges in dealing with enforcement of laws and regulations that are actually on the books, and mechanisms that have been employed to enhance enforcement efforts and to ensure protection under the law. Role of Traditions offers analysis and observations on the role of local traditions and customs in dealing with gender equality under the law. In addition to the 4 categories of information for a country and subtopic, researchers can share information on local projects. Let's navigate to Denmark and then select the subtopic Rural Areas. We can see that a project has been included in the database. These projects can be assigned to multiple countries as well as multiple subtopics. There are also substantive links to other sources and databases. Let's navigate to the country of Belize, and then we will select the subtopic Rape and Sexual Assault. Here we find links to other primary sources, including the Criminal Code of Belize and the official website of the Belize Police Department. When we click on one of those links, we are taken directly to the associated website. IMPOWR was initiated by the American Bar Association and is scheduled to be launched in late spring 2011 at www.impower.org. Once the database is complete, IMPOWR will serve as a unique collaborative resource over which the global community of gender law experts, legislators, judges, project leaders, volunteers, law students, financial institutions, and decision makers can exchange knowledge and wisdom on gender equality law reform. IMPOWR offers opportunities for gender law specialists and law students to participate in building out the database, as well as offering articles and commentary. For more information, contact IMPOWR at americanbar.org.
So that's the structure of the database that we have and our website. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amy, who has been our co-chair for the research committee. And it's really through her tremendous effort organizing how to instruct people, how to put information into the database, and organizing the development of the content that we're able to get so much information out to you. We can talk about questions about all that at the end of the presentation. So, Amy.
Thank you, Aileen. And before I start talking about the specific nuts and bolts that I'm going to talk about, I wanted to say one thing. Aileen alluded to this when she started talking, but I want to make it clear that this is the beating heart of IMPOWR right here. this woman conceived essentially of the project and has seen it through since its early inception, and it's only because of her that we're here. So I'm really grateful to her. I'm grateful to all of you for being here, but I'm particularly grateful to Aileen for guiding us and having the energy to make it happen, and she deserves a round of applause. I'm sincere. But moving on to what I'm going to talk about, if Aileen is the beating heart of IMPOWR, then she has 6 limbs, and they are research, review, outreach, programs, communications, and websites. These are the 6 committees that comprise the IMPOWR task force. They are in a variety of degrees of operation right now because we are so early in our preparation. But you can see for yourself that there are several organizational units that handle different aspects of the IMPOWR project. And one of the reasons why I think it's important to highlight this is because we want to make sure that everyone knows that what I'm about to talk about is one form of contributing to IMPOWR, but there are lots of ways that you can be involved if you have an interest. I'm going to talk about the original research and data content that we're putting into the website. But IMPOWR also has a review committee that seeks experts and individuals who want to help review the veracity and adequacy of content, outreach committee that seeks to act as liaison with important external institutions. For example, we've just talked about trying to link up with the bar associations in all of in every CEDAW country we can get in touch with so that we can harness their expertise. The programs committee develops programs that are relevant to IMPOWR, and I think these have been mentioned a couple of times, but as Aileen noted, the programs committee is putting on a really interesting and important talk next week, Thursday, April 7th, about the ratification of CEDAW. And that's information on that is available on the web, and it's also available in the ABA spring meeting bulletin, which is floating around the room, or you can ask one of us if you're interested in attending. So programs actually puts on programs. The communications committee develops the original articles that Aileen was talking about and other materials that promote all of the goals of IMPOWR. And the website committee, which is inordinately important and unsung, is intended to create policies for the website and continue the functionality of the website down the road, analyzing the structure and those sorts of things. So those are the committees that comprise the IMPOWR task force, and I'm going to talk about the research committee, which is something that I've been involved in for a little bit more than a year. With my co-chair, Gretchen Bellamy. She couldn't be here today, but I know that she would second my sentiment when I say that we are the backbone of IMPOWR. I just noticed that I'm really into these physiological analogies here. I actually had a background in emergency medicine for years, so we're going to get to even more physiological analogies in a minute. But we truly are the backbone of IMPOWR. The research committee is the entire universe of people out there in the world. We call them contributing editors who are researching the original content that will populate the IMPOWR database and that will be accessible through the IMPOWR website when we go live. So people from all over the globe will be able to search the website and access the data that these contributing editors are inputting even as we speak. Just to give you a little bit of a landmark of where we are now. Thank you. I noticed we just realized we're up to 42 contributing editors, CEs. These are 42 different individuals who have committed to input original research. So far, we've got 69 subtopics covered across 17 countries. But as Aileen noted, if you do the math over 185 countries with 40 subtopics per country, I have done the math. It's depressing. We have a long way to go. We're just getting started. And so we definitely need some help, and we're looking for volunteers. This is part of what this program is for, and we encourage you to nudge your like-minded friends in our direction. But as I pointed out to Aileen at the beginning of this presentation, or right before we started, since we got started, which was really just about 6 months ago, actually inputting data into the database, there has been an exponential increase in the amount of information available on IMPOWR, and we're really hitting our stride. So I think that in the next few months as we prepare to, or next couple of months as we prepare to go live, you'll see IMPOWR achieving what we hope is the sort of critical mass that will enable us to be self-sustaining in the long run. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the contributing editors because, as I said, one of my purposes in participating in this program is to encourage anyone who's interested to become a contributing editor. They are all volunteers. Many of them are legal professionals. Quite a few of them are students. We've had some undergrad students. We also have a lot of law students who are doing research for other reasons and are able to contribute or want to do some research, and IMPOWR gives them the venue to present it. Subject matter experts, and as the slide says, anyone can work with IMPOWR. So if you have research that you've already done, we'd love to have it. If you want to do some research, we'd love to give you the framework within which to go out there and do it. Some useful qualifications for potential contributing editors, or as we call them, CEs, are non-English language capabilities, legal background, which is not a requirement, but it's helpful, anyone who's interested in gender law and law reform projects, and a pulse, which is, and I'm serious about this. We really, you know, we have a training program whereby we can help you get up to speed on how to input data and what to look for. And we'd love to have you come and help us. So, all right, I wanted to talk about just a couple of the contributing editors, and I want to make one thing really clear. I'm talking about 3 people. By the time we get to the next slide, there are 42 contributing editors, and throughout IMPOWR, there are dozens of other people who absolutely make this project run and are really getting it off the ground. And I just want to make sure that it's clear that even though I'm not able to mention everybody by name, there are tons of phenomenal people on the research committee who are doing great things. One of whom is Cheryl Murphy, and if you were paying minute attention during the video, when the video addressed some of the trafficking issues in Bangladesh, you might have noticed a little tagline that said, "Entered by C. Murphy at such and such a time." That's this Cheryl Murphy, who's an attorney who lives in Virginia and works for IMPOWR, and she focused on crimes and violence against women in Bangladesh. She's done a phenomenal job building out the data for that country, and we wanted to acknowledge her work and let you know that you know, we need 40 more of her. Before she started working for IMPOWR, she was a special features reporter for the international human rights journal Impunity Watch. The Bangladesh, Belize, and multiple other country entries are available to you if you want to take a look at them and test drive IMPOWR after the presentation. Brooke Jefferson, our excellent intern, is sitting here where we have 2 stations set up where you can actually take a look at and examine the data we've entered today. So anyway, you can do that. You can take a look at Cheryl's work. You can also, I think, take a look at some data input to Cuba by Chad Bascom, if he's had a chance to upload it yet. He's one of our more recent contributing editors. He studied abroad in Cuba before moving on to the Fordham University School of Law. Chad's interesting. I call him our token male. I think there are a couple of others, but we'd love to have more like him. He's very interested in open source access to legal information, and I think that's really an important aspect of the IMPOWR concept. He also he also welcomes the opportunity to put his Spanish language skills into use, and as I mentioned, any sort of special language skills are useful for IMPOWR. So we're really grateful to have him. The next slide is about Heather Hodges, another one of our many phenomenal contributing editors. Heather's research was also featured in the video about Belize, and I think she's the quintessential case for IMPOWR. She is the IMPOWR poster child because she was doing research on Belize to begin with, and she saw what IMPOWR was doing and said, well, I'm going to have this research. This gives me a venue to put it out there to the world. And simultaneously, Heather reached out to us and said, can you put me in contact with the ABA, ABA's country liaison for Belize? We were able to formulate that relationship, and I think they've synergistically been able to work together. She's getting something out of her contact with IMPOWR, and IMPOWR is getting tons of great content. I won't read the entire slide to you. I won't put you through that, but I did want to point out that what she told us when we asked her about IMPOWR, as I said, it sort of encapsulates what we're hoping to capture on a global scale. So her planned fellowship research at Georgetown included an analysis of Belize's compliance with some of the international obligations under CEDAW, and she was using a modified version of the ABA's CEDAW assessment protocol to perform her analysis. So the IMPOWR database was, as she said, a perfect platform for making sure that her research reaches other ABA members, lawyers, judges, law students, policymakers, and advocates for women's rights. This is a perfect example of the synergy that, that IMPOWR seeks to tap into. And I got to tell you, every time I take a call with the new contributing editors, there are Heather Hodges all over the world. So there's a lot of interest and a lot of expertise, and we're just trying to harness it. But just very briefly, I'll talk a little bit about how we do it on the research committee, again reminding everyone that there are a variety of committees that perform a variety of functions, but this is really sort of the central focus right now because we're trying to populate the database to the point where we have reached a critical mass, can launch globally, and will generate enough attention to remain relevant and generate additional attention and reach that sort of self-sustaining place where we want to be. This is tagged as the research database. We informally call it the data input tool. So a new contributing editor to the IMPOWR website is given a log on and is given some training. And they click on this research database tab, and they are able to navigate to their country, as you can see down in the bottom right, for example, Bangladesh. They select their country. The country comes up. There either is or is not content already. And if there is content, they can navigate to that content and either add to it or review it or initiate it. That's it. That's how you enter data into IMPOWR. It's really simple, and it's not necessary to, as I said, have a legal background. It's not necessary to have an IT background. And we have some training for folks who are incoming to help you focus your research. I'll talk just a little bit more about what we focus on, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is it. It's not rocket science. It's very simple, or I should say it's not brain surgery. It's very simple. The other reason why I wanted to display this information on Bangladesh is because this is another classic case or a quintessential case for IMPOWR. There was Aileen talked a little bit about this kind of legal situation where we seek to provide a model for other users around the globe. That's the point of the project, is its ability to act as a model. And in Bangladesh, there was a law passed to help prevent acid attacks on girls and women. It's a substantial problem. The law was passed. There was societal will to see the problem eradicated, but it wasn't happening. And so a local NGO formulated a simple program that's explained in much more detail in the IMPOWR entry, formulated a program to educate local law enforcement and local officials. And as a result of this program, enforcement of the law went up by an enormous amount. And so the point of this is to provide this model to anyone facing a similar situation or an analogous situation. Most of us who are working on this are lawyers, and we know that's how we work, right? You take somebody else's work or their analogy and you apply it to your own situation. And so the NGO project in Bangladesh provides an excellent model and a quintessential example of what IMPOWR seeks to make available globally. All right, the research committee relies a lot, as we all do in this day and age, on internet based research, but there are two things that we really do seek to find. One is primary sources, which are so important if you're a lawyer or if you're someone who's actually trying to do legal work. So we're trying to make the actual texts or verifiable copies of primary sources available wherever possible. In addition, we're highlighting law reform projects, and Aileen explained a little bit more about that during her talk. Some of the resources we rely on, and this is 3 of 3,000, there's really a lot out there, and this is, again, part of the value of IMPOWR is aggregating some of these resources in one place, but a few examples are the Law Library of Congress, which has a great website. There's the Legal Information Institute of Cornell Law School. If you're a lawyer, you know that one. If you Google a law, it's usually the first thing that pops up. They have phenomenal international legal resources as well on a variety of countries. And segueing nicely into the discussion by Janice Hyde is the fact that we do, in fact, rely heavily on GLIN, which is the Library of Congress's own global legal information network that provides real links to actual legal texts that are verified and verifiable. So Janice is going to talk to us just for a few minutes about GLIN itself. As Aileen indicated, GLIN's one of our partners, one of our original partners with IMPOWR. Janice is the director of GLIN Central here at the Library of Congress, and she's primarily responsible for managing all the non-technological aspects of GLIN. As Roberta mentioned, Janice is an anthropologist by training, which I think is fascinating and would like to learn more about afterwards. She joined the Library of Congress in 1989 and has worked in different service units since that time. She joined the law library in 1992, and her position has required increasing levels of responsibility with GLIN ever since, including today, when she's going to tell us how it works.
Thank you, Amy. And it's been now mentioned twice that I'm an anthropologist by training, and that is true. But what maybe many people don't know probably is that the focus of a lot of my anthropological work was on women in development. So it is my hope, personally and professionally, that the information and expertise that is brought together by this collaboration between GLIN and IMPOWR will in fact help those who are working on behalf of and with women around the world. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about GLIN for those of you who don't know what it is. Like IMPOWR, which is many things we've heard today, it is it's a website, it's a network, it's a publishing forum, it's many, many things. GLIN is also multiple things. It's 2 things, in fact. It is a network, first of all, of governments around the world that work together to contribute information to a database. So it is a network. And it is a database of laws and legal information from around the world. This is a cooperative. We don't know of any other thing that's quite like it, in that governments around the world have agreed to work together to cooperatively build a database of legal information, of statutes, of court decisions, of legal writings, of legislative records. It is free. I hope Chad would approve. This is free, open access to the laws of the world. The information in GLIN is authoritative, and I'm happy to hear that you are really interested in getting primary source resources, and that's what we provide in GLIN. The information in GLIN is authoritative. It comes from official sources. Laws are laws as published in the official texts of countries around the world. We work with trusted partners. We do work with governments and government institutions around the world so that they can actually certify and authenticate the material that they put into the GLIN database, so that if we get a law from Kuwait, we know it is in fact the law from Kuwait. So we're very pleased to be able to offer that as well to IMPOWR. As I mentioned, there's a variety of information in GLIN ranging from constitutions down to other legal literature, commentary and opinions and reports. Currently, we have over 193,000 legal instruments from 37 member countries that are contributing information, and information from 14 other jurisdictions that are contributed by staff of the Law Library of Congress. The GLIN is searchable through a set of subject terms. We call it our GLIN thesaurus, a set of legal concepts that are taken directly from the instruments themselves, and that all of the GLIN members use to index that information, which means that comparative legal searching is possible. So if I type in the topic women, I know that it's going to be used essentially in the same way by countries around the world, much as the way that IMPOWR is using a set of topics, so that you're driving people to really put information in according to a set of standards that you've developed, and you'll know that you're going to get information that can be used for comparative purposes. It is accessible in 14 different languages. I hope we'll be able to help provide our expertise in doing a multilingual system to IMPOWR as you move forward from moving from English to those other languages. It is a very complex but very rewarding work, because people should have access to the laws that govern them in the languages that they speak and that they're comfortable in. A little bit about GLIN and IMPOWR. I'm really happy that we are one of the first partners to work with IMPOWR. And a memorandum of understanding was in fact signed last year between the American Bar Association and GLIN, which established the ABA as an associate member of GLIN. And the impetus or motivation behind that really was IMPOWR. We were approached by IMPOWR first to ask if we wanted to work with them, and we jumped at the chance to do this. And so there is a part of the MOU that specifically speaks to appropriate website links between GLIN and IMPOWR, and we look forward to moving in that direction very soon, actually. Okay, what do we get out of this? What are the benefits to GLIN from participating in IMPOWR? Well, the first thing is that, as I said, we have a thesaurus which is used by all of our countries to index their materials. And one of the things I noticed in looking at that, the first thing I did is I looked up CEDAW in our thesaurus, and it's not there. So guess what's going to be proposed very soon as a term? I'll show you in a minute. If you do a search in our database on CEDAW, you'll only find 2 records. But if you do a search on convention, women, and discrimination, you are going to find over 80. So there are items in there. And so this is already improving the GLIN thesaurus and the GLIN system, as well as a review of terms related to other IMPOWR topics. So I'm going to take all the set of topics that you have in subtopics and look in GLIN and see what we can do to improve our thesaurus in that area, so people doing searches in our database can find information related to topics in IMPOWR. A goal, of course, of ours is to be global, but we are not nearly as global, I think, as already IMPOWR is. You have 185 countries that you're aiming for, and I'm sure you're getting that information. And we would like very much, we hope very much, that in the future, some of those countries that participate and put information into IMPOWR will also be driven to contribute their information to the GLIN database as well. And we hope for some content enhancement. I'm happy to hear that you have a virtual journal, essentially, and we hope that some of those items that, and reports and articles that are generated really by IMPOWR and those contributing editors in the future can also reside in GLIN. We have a repository for legal literature or legal writings in the GLIN database, so we would love to have some of that content also go in there that we could link to the primary sources of law that are in the GLIN system. Okay, and just to show you here, I have a screenshot where I searched for CEDAW. There, you see there up at the top, and what did I get? I got 2 results. Well, that was pretty disappointing, but I figured we had more information in the system than that. So I went and I did a search more broadly on convention, discrimination, and women. And what I saw there, in fact, were 86 results. So I said, we have other stuff in here that's just not coming up that way. And in fact, I pulled this one record up from Costa Rica, and you can see at the top that this is specifically the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So the next step for me is to make sure that people can find laws on CEDAW that are in fact indexed that way. And so we'll be this is an immediate contribution of our partnership here. This is a general search on what we have currently on women specifically. Again, the terms in the GLIN thesaurus are added as we have records that need to have them use those as index terms. But what I'd like to do now is to take a look at all the topics that you've created here and see what we can do to really beef this up a little bit so people can find the topics they're looking for in GLIN as well as in IMPOWR. So again, this is something we're looking forward to doing soon. What are the benefits to IMPOWR? Well, again, we hope that IMPOWR can benefit from its work with Glenn. And the first thing is, of course, links to primary source material. So we're happy to provide anything that we have in the Glenn database that would be useful and supportive of the topics that you have in IMPOWR. And you can link to certainly anything that's in the public domain in the Glenn database. Again, because you are will be expanding, I think, probably more rapidly than Glenn does, we would love to have you recruit those countries, but we think that also we could do the opposite. We could perhaps find some content editors and others who are involved in the Glenn network who could assist in IMPOWR. For example, the director of the Glenn station in Kuwait is very interested in works on human rights and women's rights issues as part of her job in the Ministry of Justice. So I think this is a potential content editor for IMPOWR. So we would like to also then drive some of our members to IMPOWR and to be contributing editors for you as well. And of course, access to legal materials or expertise from the Glenn database, as well as through the law library, because this is the largest collection of legal materials in the world. We have an incredible set of legal experts here at the law library, who we hope can also provide you with some information and expertise in areas that you may need. So that's, we hope, will be a benefit to IMPOWR as well. And then again, just looking at women, we do a search on that, and we find that there are over 1,400 laws or legal instruments related to the topic of women in Glenn. So those are yours right now if you'd like to begin to link to that information. And then I think as a final slide I have here is just a list of the contributing member countries. Again, we're not up to 185 or anywhere close, but we hope that some of these will really want to partner very soon with IMPOWR, and some of them be actually contributing editors to this effort as well. So again, I'm delighted personally as well as professionally on behalf of Glenn to be a partner with this effort. Thank you.
I think we are hoping to entertain a few questions. So,
could I also ask the panelists, for the sake of the webcast, to repeat the questions?
yes,
So we make sure we pick up the sounds.
we will repeat questions. So, anybody here have questions? Yes.
Hi, my name is Yasmin Bint-Mama. I'm with Women Business in the Law at the World Bank. And I was curious about whether you're reaching out to legal journals that at various law schools that cover women's issues and building networks or partnerships in that regard.
Yeah, the question is whether we're reaching out to law schools, and particularly legal journals in law schools.
And yeah, thank you, Yasmin. That's a great question, and the answer is absolutely yes. I would say in this respect, we are more hampered by our need for more hands on deck than anything else, because every time I turn around, just last Saturday we had a call with 3 new contributing editors, one of whom had stood up from the ground. I think it was the DePaul University Journal of Women's Rights, something along those lines, and she had generated and created that. She's already made it clear that she has done a lot of research that'll be useful to IMPOWR. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to access these journals. And if you have particular suggestions, please see me at the end of the program and let me write them down and make sure that we get them to our outreach committee so they can collaborate with them and draw them in. But thanks, great question. Please, yes, go ahead.
When I was working in a legal office, I was helping to digitize some legal files for our teleworkers and just for overall convenience. And I was asked to index the materials. And this was more than a slight challenge for me because I have little to no legal background. So I really didn't know what to call it, so I was trying to figure out, okay, is there some type of legal thesaurus perhaps I can use and at least get a clue. And at least at that time, the people I asked, maybe I didn't ask the right people, told me there was no such thing. So I'm wondering if yet another way to promote this might be talking about the wonderful advances you've done on your thesaurus within, and also promote that it, by the way, is open access, and perhaps help spread the word to librarians globally?
The question is whether, I think it really is what Glenn has done with creating a thesaurus as a search tool can be more broadly helpful to librarians.
I'm the very important microphone passer.
Actually, the Glenn Thesaurus is one of the most frequently asked for pieces of Glenn, and it is open and freely accessible in 14 different languages. Right now, the problem is it's not in a very easily manipulable format, but it will be in a couple of months. In June, I believe, we're rolling out various formats of it. But we can provide you with a PDF of it. And yes, anybody, that is free and open in public domain, and anyone can use it, and we'd be delighted to share it with anybody who wants to use that.
I do think it's important. I think that's a really an important thing for us to remember and think about, which is that we're almost sort of have the potential to be shaping the dialogue to some extent by the terms we choose and by how we frame them. So at Glenn and at IMPOWR, we need to think about who's going to come use the database and what's going to be in their head and what are we going to give them back. It needs to be comprehensible and it needs to be accurate too.
And I just want to add to that. I think I alluded to this, but I think it's very important for people to know clearly that this is an iterative process, and it's not cemented in stone. It's only cemented in bits, which can be easily changed. So as we go through this process, one of the big benefits of having it be a collaborative and open platform is that we will get the input from the global community on how we need to rephrase things or reorganize our thought. So to the extent that we can, we will maintain a consistent structure, but it's always difficult to make sure everything's in the same category or in the right category. So to the extent that we can't be totally consistent, we will endeavor to cross-reference. So, I think it's important that we know that this is ultimately a malleable tool. Yeah.
I wanted to thank you for this presentation. It's been very interesting. I was particularly curious to find out how your contributing editors' material is being evaluated and verified before it is put on the website, if you could speak to that.
Yeah, the question is how our contributing editor material is verified before it's put on the website, but I'll hand that to
No. Well, her name is Georgie Allman, and she is here in the room with us, and she is the ABA staffer who really runs the whole project, let's be honest. I'm joking. No, I'm sorry. Georgie keeps us in line and does a great job of keeping the daily work going. And currently, what we're doing is essentially an ad hoc review. Georgie examines it for technical aspects, and I think takes a look generally at the data as it's going up. But we really don't have a content review procedure in place, so it's very much ad hoc. And clearly, before we go live, and that's one of the reasons why I talk a lot about the need for more bodies, is the need to establish the veracity. There are a lot of long-term implications to that if you even start thinking out about it at all, as far as enabling people, putting this platform out there and enabling people to provide content. We have to ensure that it's accurate.
I wanted to add to that we spent a lot of time thinking and talking about whether we would review information before it's posted or subsequently. And the decision was made to review it subsequently. In order to have prior review and approval, we thought would not only be too labor intensive, but would really create a huge bottleneck for getting information out on the internet. And one of the reasons to make it an editable resource is to use the community itself to make sure that the material remains accurate. But as Amy said, we are at this moment building a committee of reviewers who ultimately will be responsible for routinely and continuously reviewing the content. So we did get a question from one of the participants online, which I've handed to.
Great. So the question is, if I have a topical research interest and want to gather information about that topic across multiple countries, could I enter information for IMPOWR, or do you want CEs to input information on only one country? And the answer is absolutely not. In fact, we hope to slice and dice this in more than one way. Some contributing editors are working solely on a particular country or a topic or subtopic, but certainly if you have done tons of work on, for example, human trafficking or trafficking in women, and you know about the laws or law reform projects in a variety of countries, absolutely, we'd love to have you help us with that across your subject matter expertise. So we do countries vertically and subject matter expertise horizontally, and indeed that's part of the desired search capability eventually, is to contrast not just countries, but subject matter as well. Janice, do you have, I'm sorry, I was thinking about Janice because we were thinking about the veracity of content, and I guess what I was thinking is that this is the reason why primary sources are so crucial to IMPOWR, because the analysis and the entered content that we're providing is only going to be verifiable within a sort of a very broad framework. So I saw some other questions. Go ahead.
The question is how we're actually linking to external content over the website, whether we're downloading it or whether we're linking to it. It is a bit of a combination. When we're linking to external links, they literally are external links to other sites. So the example that was on the video of the document in the police department of, was it Costa Rica? Belize was leading you directly to the site where that document is hosted. So we're not intending on hosting everything on our website, but there are some documents that are available in PDF that can be, accessed by the website. Right. Well, the question is whether for those countries that don't have an electronic presence and can't maintain their own websites or database of this material, basically how we would handle that, and would we provide access to PDF copies, and are there copyright issues? Well, yes. And yes, I guess, we will do what we can to get this information, make it available. But it's very interesting. I'd like to ask Janice to expand a little bit about this question about the sensitivity in a number of countries to the openness or availability of some of these primary source documents, which is a very interesting issue.
Thank you. You do ask a very good question, because many countries say that their laws are in the public domain, but in fact the actual publication of it, for example, the official gazette, is not in public domain. So there is a real trick there. So like in Glynn, for example, we have permission of those we work with. That's specifically it. Now there are some countries in Glynn whose laws are not open. They have restricted access precisely for that reason. They have some restrictions, either copyright issues, or they've entered into exclusive publication distribution agreements for their official gazette, even though it's we think of that as being the official publication of the law, which it is, it's not necessarily in the public domain. So we would have to work that out with respect to IMPOWR and which one of those could and could not be, linked to, and how we would do that. But that's a very good question about whether you host things, how much you can distribute those or redistribute those issues. Those are all things that we work with every day in Glenn, and IMPOWR will be facing as well.
Go ahead, Yasmin.
I wanted to ask, those profiles that you showed of the contributing editors, are those going to be publicly available on IMPOWR for users of IMPOWR to see? And in addition, you mentioned that there'll be other people also helping out in addition to the contributing editors. And what do you have on the back end to organize that for yourselves, and how to keep track of everybody, who can be contacted, whose information can be forwarded, that kind of thing? What kind of information management system do you have in place?
Her name is Georgie Allman. I'm joking. And actually, we should acknowledge Christina Hyde, but this raises a good point for us to make, which is that we have the support of the American Bar Association, which has so far provided us actual paid staff. Christina has really helped us develop programs and keep things going. We've been able to enlist some actual staff and IT resources in addition to the website developers who were provided by the original grant that Aileen mentioned. We have interns like Brooke and several people who help us handle the administrative side of it. It is challenging, but we do have some actual concrete resources. There was a second part to your question that I wanted to address, though, and what am I missing?
Well, whether the CEs will be profiled on the...
Oh, I'm sorry, the CE profiles. May I address that? So the contributing, you asked about the profiles for the contributing editors, and the answer is yes, that they will be profiled with their permission, if they wish to be. And I do like to mention this as well. When I'm talking to incoming CEs, I'm a relatively recent law school graduate, and it's always stunning to me the amount of marketing that you have to do in this business, and it's really important to get your name out there. So as with other aspects of IMPOWR, we hope there's a synergy there. If you want to research, if you want to write, we provide a forum for folks to get out there, be acknowledged as a contributing editor, be acknowledged as an articles contributor, that sort of thing. And so, yeah, people's biographies will be displayed on a specific spot on the website that we could show you on one of the demo models. And I think we're working on other forms of attribution as well. Thank you. Great question.
I am not an attorney, so I'm coming at it from a different perspective in terms of research. But you could, if you had a two-stage way of verifying and you had it open-ended, you could use people like Peace Corps volunteers that might work in a certain area and know a piece of that could put information up about a law that they've been working on in the country, and then you could have a code on there that you've either verified it or not verified the information. Because I think there's a lot more research than on pieces of this in a lot of different places that you're missing because you're maybe doing a whole country at a time when you might be able to do pieces like trafficking or women's health access. I just got back from Ethiopia, and I know that there's different ways of looking at some of the ways that you can code that information, and I think it's an exciting source, but you may be limiting it by just using lawyers to gather some of your primary beginning information, but then you would have to verify it for the legal sources.
The question had to do with both verification of material and also using non-legal experts and resources to get the specific expertise on particular issues. And just to be clear once again, we are very happy to accept contributions from people on a specific topic for a specific country. We don't ask people to take on an entire country. In fact, I think that's a little bit counterproductive. I think people generally have more subject matter expertise than broad country expertise. But that said, And we are at the very beginning of reaching out to the world, really, to find these resources. And we're leveraging first what we do best, which is our connections with lawyers. And I wanted to mention that the ABA's international section has standing committees that focus on laws in all the regions of the world, so the foreign domestic laws of all the regions of the world. And we do have legal experts within our section on those various legal systems and countries and laws. We also have a full range of subject matter committees and people who have expertise on particular topics across the board, whether it's human rights generally or international health law issues or property ownership or whatever it is. So we're mining those resources first, as well as our connections to foreign bar associations. But we are at the same time reaching out particularly to the development community and to others who are non-lawyer experts, subject matter experts in these various areas. And we do hope that we will be able to get their significant input. Whether we use codes to designate verified information or not, I don't know. We don't have that process currently implemented. It's an interesting idea that we could consider. I'm sure that will evolve as well. But we definitely are looking for multifaceted perspectives and inputs on these issues. We have time for one more question. If anybody has something to add? Okay. Well, we really appreciate you all coming and this attention and the opportunity to explain ourselves to you and to put this webinar together. We appreciate your support very much. Thank you for coming.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.